Welcome to Diasporaa, the show where we share the remarkable stories of immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. I'm your host, Aditya Mehta. Each week we sit down with individuals who've made the journey over and explore their experiences, their challenges, their triumphs. We delve into their unique perspectives on adapting to a new culture while staying connected to their roots. Today we're joined by Karishma Wadhwani. She's originally from Bombay or Mumbai. She lived in India her whole life, grew up there in Bombay, and then moved here when she got married to the US. And she's been a career woman. She's had a lot of firsts in her family and now is a career coach. Her company is called Holistic Career Coach, and she helps people develop their careers. She's helped hundreds of people do it so far, and we'll go into that a little bit more during the show as well. With that, let's dive into this week's conversation. Karishma, welcome to the show.
Hi, Adi. Thanks.
Mumbai or Bombay?
Bombay always.
Bombay always. I tend to say Mumbai when I speak in Marathi, but it's a recurring theme on my show where I ask people, do you find any similarities between Bombay and Seattle?
The rain.
The rain. I like to say that Vancouver, where I lived before, and Seattle has this passive-aggressive rain. Like, it's not enough that you need a thick, rain jacket, but it's also enough that you do get wet. I prefer the Bombay monsoon. Like, it just pours down for 4 months and then it's gone. Versus here where you have to keep checking the weather and see if it's going to rain or not.
Until you don't.
Yeah. I mean, true Seattleite, I do not own an umbrella even now. So I've been in this part of the world for 7 years now. Just didn't bother buying one. So you're a Sindhi, and these are unique in India because it's, I think, one of the only communities that doesn't have a state on the India side. Like all the other states which were partitioned in 1947, like Punjab and Bengal, they have a side here and a side in Bangladesh or in Pakistan. So tell us more about the Sindhi diaspora all around the world and what were the impacts of that, the whole partition and not having a home state.
So, firstly, I genuinely believe that Sindhis are a very resilient population. And primarily it's, I think, because we are education focused and business focused.
Yeah.
And very circumstances focused in the sense that we like to not be the victim but the warrior in the circumstance. And whatever happened during the partition, like I can tell you the story of my grandparents. Both sides, so my father's father, my paternal grandfather, and my mother's grandfather, my maternal grandfather, both actually knew each other. They lived in the same city in Hyderabad, Sindh, which was at the time India, but on the Pakistan side, as we know right now. And they were all, primarily Sindhis are known for either being educated, working in like government sector or business. Like these three things we have received from our ancestors. And because they're street smart, they've been able to build wealth and like that kind of family setting. Now, both grandparents were doing really well in their individual lives and families back then. And then literally overnight, they became refugees in their own country to save their life, to save their family, and to just live in a manner that seemed authentic to them at the time. And the unfortunate part for, I think, Sindhis is we don't have that land state, like everything was left behind. The challenges that come with it is there is no visual association to where we belong necessarily. But that's where I think Sindhis nailed it. They're like, you didn't give us the state, we'll conquer the world. Right. Because, I mean, I've traveled a lot. And I remember I was on the southernmost tip of New Zealand, very close to Antarctica, and I still found a Sindhi there. And
was it Fox Glacier? Because that's where I found a Sindhi too.
Yes.
Maybe we found the same Sindhi.
Who knows? So
Yeah.
the bottom line is we just decided that, okay, this has happened. This is a situation. Let's maximize it. And I do not recall a single incident or event where either of my grandparents, who literally faced so much during the partition, because it was like you leave everything behind and you start all over from scratch without any kind of backing. And besides, the country was not even developed at the time. So it's very different from our immigration situation, which maybe we'll talk later.
Sure.
But again, imagine your basic bearings were also not sorted. But
Yeah.
not a single time did any of my grandparents or anyone in that whole generation, whoever I interacted with, did they complain that this happened. They would, in fact, always say that, oh, we fought, like one of my grandaunts, she actually fought the freedom struggle. She actually was a prisoner of war. She was a kid there
Wow.
for just maybe a few days, but
Yeah.
then she got out. And they would always reminisce the nostalgia that, okay, we had this home and it was beautiful, or
Yeah.
we did this and we did that, but it was never from a space of anger or hatred.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, this happened, let's make the most of what we got, and we built from scratch. And my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, he was a railways employee. So we came from very humble
Yeah.
beginnings. On to then my father, who decided to be an engineer, be an entrepreneur. So he set the stage for us, for
Sure.
me rather.
The importance of land ownership can't be understated in building generational wealth. You see it in the US, right? People came 400 years ago, they had access to so much land, and that has just built up over time. A lot of our families in India, right? We have property from before. That's really helped build that wealth. So given how good the Sindhi community has done, despite not having any land to, because land is collateral, land, and you can take a loan based on the land. It reduces your cost of living, whatever, right? Despite not having them, I think it's been a phenomenal success that the community is still so successful. What are the main hubs around the world where you'll find a lot of Sindhis who have been there for many generations?
I would say, literally, I think we're there everywhere now. But I think big cities is where Sindhis thrive, I guess, because we are, I think, we love eating food. A healthy Sindhi is kind of a myth, but it's breaking now, hopefully.
Yeah.
But we love food, we love hanging out, we love drinking. A lot of the Sindhi population is into, like, women especially, they're into bling and jewelry. So you cannot be in like a smaller situation. You will be in like a bigger city. So I think Mumbai, Delhi, I've seen that there's good Sindhi population even in New York, Pune. So these are all the major cities that at least I have definitely seen.
Yeah, always correlated like Dubai and Hong Kong to be very large Sindhi
Yes.
populations. I have a friend also named Karishma, Sindhi, from, I might mispronounce this, but from the country called Curacao in the Caribbean. It's an island nation. And she's like, there's probably 500 Sindhi people
Oh, yes.
there.
So wherever there
yeah.
will be business opportunities, I guess that's where
Yeah.
Sindhis will show up.
Yeah, that
And
makes
I
sense.
would say business, and also we really enjoy having, I would say, freedom of sorts. So wherever there is an opportunity to build wealth, you'll find a Sindhi.
Yeah. Easy way to guess if someone's Sindhi, the last name ends in A-N-I.
A&I.
But that's not always
Not
the
always,
case.
but it's a good way.
Yeah. I always joke around how a lot of the Sindhi last names, they sound very rich. There was this comedian called Abhishek Upmanyu, and he said, I wonder why people don't name their kids rich sounding names, because that's free. Like anyone can do it. And if you had a cab driver and he had a name like Kabir Wadhwani, it'd be like, why are you driving a taxi? You sound rich. So I think Wadhwani is definitely one of those last names which, like, you think, oh, it must be a big industrial area, you know. Some names have that ring to them. Anya, Malhotra,
Yes,
right?
of course.
Cool. So you went to Jai Hind College, and is it also a Sindhi college like HR and KCR?
So, yes. So let me tell you, as I said, Sindhis are pioneers in education. And actually within the Sindh community too, there are different, I would say, sects. I don't need to necessarily go into that. But one of the sects primarily focused on getting education set up. So if you're familiar with HSNB board, it is the Hyderabad Sindh National
Yeah.
Board. And that actually is a part of the sect that I am coming from. As I
Okay.
told you, my ancestors are from Hyderabad. Again, within that, there's another sub-community. We don't get into that. Bottom line, Jai Hind, HR, KC, MMK, the Engineering College,
Yeah.
all of these are part of that same board. And they are some of the best institutes in the city.
I went to HR 11th and 12th, and I moved to US after that, so I didn't spend the whole time, my 5 years of college. Context for our listeners, in Bombay we have a unique system where you're in primary school till the 4th grade, and then secondary school till the 10th grade, which is where everywhere else in India is like that. But in Bombay, in 11th and 12th, you do junior college. So for 2 years, you go to a separate institution, which is usually aligned to where you would go for your undergrad. So it's like going for your undergrad and spending 2 years in junior college and then starting your undergrad at that.
So basically, the junior college is the high school
It's, yeah,
equivalent.
11th and 12th grade of
Yes.
high school.
Yeah.
So all these names we're throwing around right now, HR and Jai Hind. And there was a little bit of healthy rivalry as well between all these colleges.
Of course. I remember, so actually, fun fact, my father, my uncle, my aunt went to Jai Hind, and they were in science, arts, commerce. So we got like the
Yeah.
three lines
Yeah.
all from Jai Hind. I went as well. But HR actually had the best food. And it was
Sure.
like 5 minutes away. And
Butterfly Cafe.
Butterfly Cafe. So we'd see a lot of Jai Hindites
Yeah.
a lot of times
Yeah.
hanging at
I
Butterfly
don't,
Cafe.
I don't think I could stomach that food anymore though. Like after living here for all these years, there was a guy
It was
called
the vibe.
yeah, there was a guy called Raju Chinese, and he used to sit outside. And then the city government, I think they changed the law that they can't be outside
Yes.
anymore.
So they got him in.
So the very smart principal we had, Indusha,
Yes.
so she got everybody to move inside and created a canteen out of it.
Yes.
This brings back a lot of memories. Okay, so you're born and brought up in Bombay, and you did your undergrad, all of that. Did you study further after your undergrad?
No.
After your bachelor's?
No. I completed my bachelor's. I'm an engineer from TSEC in Mumbai, after which I started working immediately. In
Yeah.
fact, I still remember I finished my exams, and in less than 2 weeks, I was employed.
Okay.
So I was working.
Wow.
I didn't even get my degree yet, and I was working. And after working for a few years at Deloitte, I started my own company.
And you were the first woman entrepreneur in your family?
Yes, I was the first engineer. I was the first woman entrepreneur. I was the first immigrant to the US. So there's a lot of firsts in my family that I have achieved.
And was your like immediate family always supportive of all these?
Yes, the most part, yes. I mean, my father and mother were the wind beneath my wings. I would
Sure.
not have been where I am had they
Yeah.
not given me that kind of, I would say, push to become what I
Yeah.
want to. Of course, the times were different. I'm a 90s kid, so there was enough happening in the world in India. We are a traditional country. We are a
Yeah.
fairly traditional family. But with regards to education, with regards to wanting to do what you need to with your career in life, I never really had to think twice.
Yeah.
So long as it was a safe kind of situation, we
Sure.
were all for it.
What was your first business about, the one in India?
I actually started up an ed tech consulting company.
Okay.
It was called The Finishing Touch. I worked primarily with K-12 institutes. And the reason I started it back then was I saw a gap between kids who were graduating from their schools or the K-12 curriculum, who were then trying to get into college. They were not able to necessarily identify whatever they had learned to apply it to a skill set that would ultimately get
Sure.
them a job. There was
Sure.
a clear gap. And
Oh,
I
yeah.
wanted to fill that skill and interest gap. That's how I started the company. So I would work directly with students on understanding their strengths, their skills, their
Yeah.
communication aspects. Sometimes even on the focus of, I would say, even from a math and science application perspective. Like, yes, you're studying all these things in your math and science class, but how do you actually apply it? When you are in the
Yeah.
real world, if you're not able to communicate correctly what you are trying to do,
Yeah.
then it kind of just doesn't make sense anymore.
Yeah.
So that's how it started. And then it evolved into training teachers to be able to impart that type of
Sure.
curriculum. So let's not just focus on making the curriculum pretty, but actually focusing on changing the curriculum to changing times.
Sure.
I started this company in 2013, and at the time there was a lot of change happening.
Yeah.
A lot of schools were moving from state board to, I would say,
The international
the
board.
IGCSE, which
Yeah.
is the international equivalent. Now,
Yeah.
when that happens, institutes cannot necessarily just let go of their staff. A lot of them needed hand holding from a curriculum standpoint, from understanding what does the student and parent want out of the money that they're spending at
Yeah.
school. So I was bridging that gap and also bringing technology to campus. So we got apps for schools so that the parent, teacher, and student at times could be
Yeah.
connected just via an app.
Makes sense.
It was fun doing what I did.
I think that gap is still there.
It does
The
exist.
employability gap. We had a family business which was very people intensive. We would hire hundreds of students every year, and many of them didn't know how to write a basic email, let alone the more complicated stuff.
Yes.
So the degree is just for the sake of it, that you have a degree. It's not tied to what the market needs, for example. And people come in with the expectation that because I have an MBA, I should get this much salary. And it's more than what. So for them, it's I pay this much fees, I get a salary increase of this much. There's no focus whatsoever on actually learning from the program.
You are
Yeah.
saying my language right
Yeah.
now because this exists even now. And what has happened is education and jobs have become very transactional.
Yeah.
I think that's the
Yeah.
essence, right? Like you cannot always put X amount and expect that to have an ROI necessarily
Yeah.
without you actually maximizing and optimizing the resources that you have at hand, including the degree that you may have. It's not, the degree cannot sell a job to you necessarily. You have to sell yourself
Yeah.
in a manner that you get the job
Yeah.
you want.
Yeah. On that note, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about your move to the US. I might have some questions on the getting married front as well.
Absolutely.
Like you, I had an arranged marriage. And I think there's
How's that going? I've met Prachi. She's beautiful.
14
so.
years. So it's going great. So yeah, when we come back, we'll talk about that. So stay tuned and we'll be back after these short messages.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Are you ready to discover remarkable stories of resilience and cultural connection? This is Diasporaa, a show sharing the journeys of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent now building their lives in North America. Inspiring, insightful, and always engaging, Diasporaa offers a unique perspective on the immigrant experience. Join me, Aditya Mehta, my guests, on the Diasporaa Show every Wednesday at 2 p.m. right here on KKNW.
Make us part of your daily routine. Alternative Talk 1150.
Welcome back to Diasporaa on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from the Indian subcontinent. We are talking to Karishma Wadhwani. She's a career coach and an entrepreneur. I'm our guest for today. So, you had not lived outside India until you got married, right?
Yes.
You grew up in Bombay.
Yep.
And I think I established you were from Bombay the first 3 minutes that we were talking, because Bombay people have a certain vibe, and in like a positive way. Just our English is a little bit different. The terms we use are a little bit different. So what brought you to the US? Did you actively want to come to US, or it happened that way?
So, fun fact, I have lived in the same home that my father was born in.
Wow.
So that is the history of how long me and my family have lived there. And so with regards to the US, I was very happy in Bombay. I loved the city. I never in my wildest dream wanted to come here. Like, yeah, to travel maybe, but
Sure.
never to really move. In fact, I remember when I was working for Deloitte, I of course worked with a lot of US based clients, and every single client that I worked for was more than happy to have me come over for the on-site opportunity and then eventually maybe have me work for them. And I'd always decline. And they'd be like, why? And I'm like, I like my life here. I'm not really missing anything. I have everything going for me. And then once I started up, I just thought that anyways, it's not happening. Only for marriage to bring me here.
Yeah.
So when my story with marriage or arranged marriages So I would say in my late 20s, and my parents were asking, like, hey,
Yeah.
what's the scene? Like, are you interested in getting married? Do you like someone? Is that the case? What's going
Yeah.
on? So I was like, A, no, I'm not seeing anyone. I'm too busy working. And two, my parents too had a arranged marriage. And somewhere in my head, I always thought that would be the best way to ultimately
Yeah.
have a marriage too. So never really hit that way. So that's literally how it started. Like
Yeah.
they asking me, are you seeing someone? If yes, then let's see
Yeah.
what can we do. And if not, then should we kind of pitch in? Like, are you ready to get married?
So more context for our listeners. There's a notion that in arranged marriage, your parents decide who you're going to marry. You have no choice in the matter. And sure, maybe 80 years ago, that might have been the case. Like my grandparents met each other on the day of the wedding. And for them, it's like, this is how it is. And they don't have an opinion otherwise. My parents didn't have that at all. It's what in India we call a love marriage. So they found each other. And for me, it was exactly like it was with you. That is, do you have somebody or do you want us to spread the word? And generally, there are nuances from family to family depending on how conservative you are and what your community is and whatnot. But, your parents put out the word in starting with your caste or your group. And these biodata start coming in, and then you have a vetting process of sorts. You have the astrology matching business that goes on, probably a multi-billion-dollar industry by itself. And I was very surprised, even at that time, to see how it had kept up with the times, where you get this PDF report that tracks what things are compatible.
There is an app now.
Oh, I'm sure. So my wife and I, there were like, out of the 36 parameters, I think 18 is like good enough for a match. We had 31 match. So it's like, drop everything and marry this person right now. And the report was scaringly accurate in what it predicted and didn't. So the whole arranged marriage, why do you think it works in the Indian context?
So I always say this. Marriage, if you really mean to believe in the institute, is for the keeps. It's for the long term. And you think of it like a partnership.
Yeah.
When does a partnership work? When there is enough like for like. Like, yes, you will have differences, not to say that you're marrying your clone, but there has to be enough common ground,
Sure.
enough like to like. In the way we got married in an arranged marriage setup, when we have similar family setups,
Yeah.
similar ideals,
Yeah.
similar ways that we have grown up in, it is very likely that we'll be on a common page for the most part.
Yeah.
And I think that sets the basic foundation and
Yeah.
connotation. Secondly, in the Indian subcontinent, marriage is not necessarily between two individuals. There are times people are like, you're marrying into the family,
Yeah.
and vice versa. So no matter how much we may have evolved from that very traditional kind of marriage situation,
Yeah.
but still there is enough, I would say, relations that we like to maintain within our family and
Yeah.
extended family members. And for that situation to work successfully, like literally from a very practical standpoint, it just makes sense when at least the two people who are going to get married are introduced by the families, parents or whoever.
Yeah.
That way, like the initial vetting process of the basics is
Yeah.
taken care of. So you look at what you can offer and
Yeah.
then you find a partner, and the partner will fill in where you cannot.
Yeah, I think it's an immensely practical system where you're not dating someone for 6 months and then finding out they don't want kids and then wasting time. So because of this vetting that you described so perfectly, and because of this matching of the community, the socio-economic status, the education, a lot of that groundwork is already done by the time you meet for the first time. So then in your first or second so-called date, you start talking about, do you want kids? Do you want to live abroad? Are you going to study further? So you're talking about all the macro stuff right away without coming across as like too needy. If I went for a date in a regular setting and said, how many kids do you want in the first date? It would be like, that's creepy almost,
Yes.
right? But here, that problem doesn't happen. And I also think it really works because you go in knowing that you don't know the person fully. You only know the macros, like how many kids they want, but you don't know if they like blue or green, or that are they super organized or super lazy at home, like all these things that you don't know and you will find out at
Yes.
some point. So I think your acceptability state is very high, and your ability to adapt to these things that you find out about your partner later is also very high. Because you're more adjusting and flexible as a entry point, these marriages, that's why I have such a low divorce rate in India. I mean, part of it is also, I'm sure, because of like social stigma, that people are unhappy, but they don't want to leave the marriage because then they're leaving the whole family, like you said. But I do think it definitely has a positive impact as well. How long was the period from first meeting to getting married?
Yeah, so actually, it's kind of a very funny story. The first time ever my husband texted me to say hi and get connected was on February 16, 2016.
Okay.
And a year later, we got hitched. Like,
Okay.
so like start to finish, 1 year, you can
Yeah,
say.
I met Prachi in February of 2011, and we were engaged in April and married in November.
Okay.
And because, November is the wedding season. So a lot of marriages happen around that time. So then the whole schedule is planned that way. You get engaged by this time. Then you have your courtship period where you get to know each other better and spend more time together. You're still not going on trips together. Maybe you will if your family is more liberal that way. But I thoroughly enjoyed the whole process. And I think another good thing it does is it ensures everybody gets married. So if you're, for lack of any other better way to describe it, if you're a 3, then you'll find a 2.5 to 3.5 for you, right? Here I see that if there's a guy who doesn't have that kind of social skill to talk to women or is not able to go through that whole dating grind, then a lot of people just stay single for a very long time. In India, it kind of ensures that everybody finds a match, really.
I remember, it's so funny. So I lived in a Sindhi society, Sindhi colony. And by default, when you are sort of marriageable age, everyone's eyeing you in some way or the other, not just for their personal family kind of situation. They'll always be
the
like,
whole social
why
network.
don't you consider, so-and-so's cousin kind of situation. So it's not just your immediate family, but literally
Everyone's
anyone. Literally
Yeah.
anyone and everyone would be interested to figure what's going on. It may have its own pros and cons, but it just casts a wider net.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think another reason why these arranged marriages or people who met through arranged marriages tend to work is because when you meet someone, there is a goal that you have in mind. You are looking to get married. It may not be with that individual necessarily. You'll probably move to the next person you'll see or meet. But there is an end goal. Like there is some sanctity to that versus you're just out there having fun and then it leads to something.
And if you keep rejecting people for frivolous reasons, then that word gets around too. That, he's seen 40 different girls and he's still not able to make up his mind. Or vice versa for the girl as well. So the net that you speak of, my grandfather was getting some Lifetime Achievement Award in our caste association. Every caste has this. And the president of that told my mom, like she had gone with him to get the award at the ceremony. He said, we would like you to donate some money for this so that we can help kids with scholarships or something like that. So she said, okay, come pick up the check from my office. At the office, she happened to mention that, we just started looking for my son. Do you know anyone? Because, same caste, so chances are high. And he said, I know just the person. And he introduced us to his neighbor, who's now my father-in-law. And he had not even finished her MBA. So her graduation was pending. She had just finished a degree. She had not ever thought of getting married. I was the first guy she met. She's the first girl I met. And she was 24, I was 25. And in 9 months, boom, you're like, already married.
Yeah.
So that net is, I agree, it casts a wider net and you never know where that biodata will come from.
It's like a practical Tinder who is AI trained. And I say AI because actually AI plus EI.
Anti-intelligence.
No, I would say, so your parents, right? I always feel that a parent, if has invested enough time and effort in the child, will know what the child is like and wants. So they know you enough. Sometimes they know you better than even you may think. And it really helps to have that third eye perspective, but from someone who is your well-wisher rather than a random person walking on the street.
Yeah, but earlier, your impression that gets created would be based on the impression your family has. So like, oh, if you're son of so and so, those are very upstanding people, so you must be. But now it's not the case anymore where the kids are exactly like the parents. The apple is falling further away from the tree. So do you think that could create a problem?
I think it really depends on how an individual is deciding, like what are their criteria.
Yeah.
Like for me, I'm very clear what are my non-negotiables in anything in life.
Sure.
And that's why I qualify people who I meet with, whether it's friends, whether it's extended family,
Yeah.
whether it's arranged marriage setup, whatever it may be, or business leads. So that's my threshold. So I don't really care. I have certain things that I know I'll gel or not gel with. If you fit, I'm happy to meet you. If not,
Yeah,
have
like
fun.
I think the obvious big macros are I don't want to meet anyone who is non-vegetarian because I am vegetarian. And then you have like your other preferences, like, oh, it'll be nice if she's professionally educated or whatever. And then things which are like happy bonuses, like, my wife and I both like mushrooms. So we like putting mushrooms on pizza. Those are not things you will qualify on, but they are just things that you find out later and
Yeah.
get to know them. Okay, great. This was a fun conversation. What were your first few days in the US like? Because it's new marriage and new country.
Yes, my world changed in literally one day. So I moved from Mumbai to New York City. Now, both are very similar cities in a
Sure.
lot of ways, like large populations, in your face, fast paced. So I guess that was not very hard to adjust. But the basics, like if we needed milk, you get like 1 liter of milk in India. Here it's
Yeah.
a gallon. And I'm
Yeah.
like doing math. Like, what does a gallon even mean? Right? Like those kind of basics
Yeah.
to get that bearing sorted. The trains, the subways, the E train, the F train, whatnot. So for me to get that going initially, and I'm someone who's very independent, like pretty much like I actually started walking when I was 9 months old. So I have been that kind of a personality, like literally on my own. And then to be put in a situation where new husband, new family, new city, new country,
Yeah.
to the extent that you're dependent on so many factors, like basics. How do I get from A to B?
Yeah.
To buying something, to knowing that I have to ask for money. Even
Sure.
that was something, it was an adjustment for me initially to get sorted. And from a career perspective, I went from boss to job seeker overnight, literally.
Yes.
So it was groundbreaking and very, I would say, like I was crushed on many levels and I did not realize until you actually go through it, right? Like I'm lucky that both me and my husband gelled enough to able to storm that, to be able to ride that tide. But it was very tough initially to just get situated.
On the gallon versus liter point, so the second time I moved here, this is my second innings in North America, I didn't bother to move to Fahrenheit. I'm still on Celsius. I'm still on kilos. And I think a lot of Indian people know that Fahrenheit to Celsius calculation by heart, minus 32 into 5 divided by 9. So the first time I tried to take that effort to get used to the local, these nuances, but this time I just didn't have the energy to do that. So my home thermostat, everything is still in Celsius.
Whatever works, that's what matters.
Yeah, whatever works. Did you have any like funny instances when you were new due to the difference in what things are called, due to differences in like how people greet each other? Like for me, small talk was like, what is this thing? Like, why are people asking me how my day is, right? So do you have any lighthearted incidents like that?
Well, I mean, not really. For me, small talk was not something that I had challenges with in New York. I kind of felt people were very helpful. They were in a rush, but always willing to help. Very similar to Bombay. But Seattle was a whole other, I would say, situation. And in my case, I moved from Mumbai to New York to Seattle all within 1 year. So there was another change that happened. So adjusting into New York from a people perspective was not that much of a challenge for me. It was more the process of understanding things.
So what brought you to Seattle? Was it your husband's
Yes,
work?
yes. My husband got a job with Amazon, and that's what brought us from New York to Seattle.
So he's in Seattle and he works for Amazon. That's
Yes.
quite rare to see. Yeah, no, I have my own set of Amazon stories. But let's take a break here. And when we come back, we will talk about what you're doing currently, as well as any advice that you have for new immigrants. So we'll be right back after these messages.
What is dedication?
The thing that drives me every day as a dad is Dariana. We call him Day Day for short. Every day he's hungry for something, whether it's attention, affection, knowledge. And there's this huge responsibility in making sure that when he's no longer under my wing, that he's a good person. I want him to be able to sit back one day and go, we worked together, we did a good job.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
Hello, I'm Chris Erdman. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW, I sit down with inspiring entrepreneurs, creative minds, and game changers to uncover the real stories behind their business. On my show, Made of More, we explore the challenges that they've overcome, the breakthroughs that they've celebrated, and the mindset that drives them forward. If you're ready to unlock your full entrepreneurial potential, Made of More is the show for you, because here we know you are made of more. Every Wednesday at 8 a.m. on KKNW.
Wherever you go, Alternative Talk 1150 is here for you.
Welcome back to Diasporaa on KKNW, where we share interesting stories of first-generation immigrants from South Asia. We're talking to Karishma Wadhwani today. She's an entrepreneur and a career coach. And in the first two segments, we talked about arranged marriage and the Sindhi diaspora, and now we're going to talk about what she does right now. So how did you get acquainted with the current thing that you're doing, and what brought about you wanting to do that in the first place?
So, as I was saying, that I moved from New York to Seattle within a year, and throughout that 1 year, there was a constant piece of advice I got from people was, you have done a bachelor's in engineering, and why don't you just go to a master's and you'll get a 6-figure job? While the advice was, I would like to believe, well-meaning, it did not resonate with me. But it was getting to a point where it was very hard for me to make people understand that I have had a very different career path.
Sure.
I'm not someone who thinks like everyone else does. I have certain skills and values that I bring to the table. And I don't need necessarily a degree to prove that for me and then get an entry. So I decided I'm going to go on this on my own. And I actually got a job with Morgan Stanley in New York. Nice. But at the time, my husband got a job with Amazon. So I was like, fine, it'll be just easier for me to like start over in Seattle. Plus, I was like, if I got a job in New York, Seattle is going to be a cakewalk. I wish. But when we came to Seattle, there was a whole other journey. And fun fact, my husband actually got the job with Amazon through a connection of mine.
Nice.
So it was sort of like a bittersweet moment in many ways. When I came to Seattle, there was a lot of, I would say, cultural difference that I noticed. Just from coast to coast, the kind of city,
it's a thing.
The kind of people. Seattle freeze is a thing. And there was a lot of perception people had about women who are strong and who have strong personalities, who don't want to blend in wearing yoga pants. And it took me some time to navigate that. But I still got a job on my own terms without any degree. Once I did that, I wanted to help others do the same. So initially, while I was working in the tech program management space. And while working, I started helping skilled immigrants who are refugees, asylees, trying to get situated in their, I would say, so these are skilled immigrants who have like similar backgrounds, like engineers, doctors, MBA from their countries. But here they are having survival jobs. They don't know how to navigate the system. Sure. Sometimes there are language barriers. Sometimes there is just not even understanding of what they can do here because they just are not familiar with the ecosystem. So I started helping these individuals very from a space of I was able to do this. Why should I not help someone else do that? So I started that way. And I truly enjoyed that. It was more like a passion project that I did. And then I also happened to be a yoga teacher from India. And yoga is not just the asana pranayam thing, it's a philosophy of life. In 2020, I started coaching individuals virtually in a one-on-one setting, not to teach them yoga necessarily, but to kind of bring the philosophy of yoga into their lives. And it started having ripple effects in different areas of their careers, life, relations.
Interesting. And that's why the name holistic.
Yes. So slowly I started realizing that I can marry these two fields together.
Yeah.
Of the career aspect and the philosophy of yoga kind of thing. And at the same time, I was having a very accelerated career path. So I was working at the UW, the University of Washington. I started working for them in 2020. And in 3 years, I went from individual contributor to director. Mm-hmm. So I was definitely doing something right.
Yeah.
And it was not like a steady departmental job. This was the largest project that the university and the state had undertaken. So on that kind of an initiative, which is very time bound and a pretty large project, I was able to do this. So I was definitely doing something right. And I didn't want to gatekeep that anymore. And through my entire corporate career, not just corporate actually, even through my entrepreneurial journey, I always noticed a lot of women who had so much to offer from a talent perspective, but they would not even know that, let alone be able to sell that. And I wanted to help them demand that top dollar by knowing what they can bring to the table. And that's how I created and founded the Holistic Career Coach. And my goal, when I say from a career coaching standpoint, is simple, that you are doing your job, whatever job you are doing. Your job is one part of your career, and your career is one part of your life. It's not the other way around. But a lot of people, especially when you're in that mid-senior corporate professional job, working at FANG and all the big companies in the world, you make your job your life, literally. We spend easily 40 hours. 40 hours is minimum. We mostly spend more than that every single day at work. And we make that our life without having necessarily understood what truly are we offering to not just the job, but to our career in life. So I help individuals kind of navigate that in a manner that truly makes them the authentic leader that they deserve to become and get the $20.
So what I'm hearing is this is an extremely customized service. It's not you have a few worksheets and people fill them out.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so
I wish it was that simple.
Because you're going into the holistic approach and also bringing in the yoga principles on just the way of life versus just this is your job and this is we help you build a resume. This is going far beyond that. And you've helped a few hundred people by now?
So I have worked with 250 plus individuals. I am someone who meets the client where they are. Yes, there are times we need to focus more on the outer deliverables of a resume and an interview and all of that. But there are times we have to, especially in the leadership coaching, because a lot of people come to me facing challenges with their immediate teams. They are people who are not able to get that promotion, not able to step up. There we focus really deeply into the holistic aspect. And then the folks that are very driven, that they know, yes, I need this job because of XYZ reason, we still go holistically, but it's more on their professional branding, mapping to their strengths.
That's a very interesting approach. Do you ever work directly with a company and get their entire C-suite, for example? Is the individual always your client?
Right now, it's the individuals. I primarily work with a lot of one-on-one clients. The goal, or I wouldn't say goal, but I would love to work in a larger setting of a team, like you mentioned, or corporate clients. But I am raising this business as I'm raising my baby, who's 15 months old. So keeping that perspective in mind, it's really important for me to, the biggest, I would say, for me, like I always say this, if I'm able to help another woman, I'm done. I started with one woman and I've already achieved that. So I've met my goal. Now it's really about scaling, but within what I have going on in my life.
That was what I was going to ask next, is the scale. How do you bring scale to something like this, which is so customized and individual and needs your focused time, expertise, both? How do you plan to scale this?
So there are two aspects. What does scaling mean to you is what matters. So for me, scaling can be in two aspects. One is, do I want to reach maximum population to help them unlock their professional brand, or is it maximum value for X people? So it's a thin balance. And that's where there are certain services which are not necessarily as deep from a length of the course standpoint, but very result and deliverable driven. Like, say, for example, your resume, say, for example, your interview prep, say, for example, your salary negotiations. Those are things that can be done fairly quickly, and it can definitely bring more monetization to my business. But the leadership coaching is something that I don't necessarily open up to all of the audience, because I feel like I don't want to just scratch the surface. A lot of people who come, they are very like, I just want this. If they cannot answer why they're looking for that, I'm not going to offer that service to protect my own time, energy. So it kind of, scaling for me is not just from a monetization perspective, it's also the value that I'm bringing to those people's lives. So I always kind of evaluate, what is this bringing in to my business?
Do a lot of your clients have work visas? Because that would add a layer of complexity.
It's a combination. I work with people who have these, like literally, like one of my clients, I think it was about 6 months ago, she was in this classic situation where there was a layoff and your clock started 60 days.
60 days.
And we were able to get her what she wanted, in fact, so much better. And then there are individuals who don't necessarily have visa situations, but then they still want to be building up into the career that they want to. So it's a combination, but I've worked with either ways.
Yeah, because I think it would bring some constraints into what you can and can't do, and how quickly you have to show those results.
I always feel like visa, I mean, yes, I won't say it's not, how do I say this? You can or not get a job based on your skills and what you performed in your interview. Visa is not the concern when you've reached the interview stage.
Sure.
So,
if you're good, they'll figure out a way.
Exactly, they will. There has to be a way. So I always tell people that don't sweat on the paperwork. Visa is literally paperwork. You don't have to sweat that. There is a whole agency at your employer's office that they will figure that. But you focus on what you bring to the table.
My concern is more that it just narrows the pool of jobs available, because there are so many jobs that they explicitly say work authorization not offered. So if no matter how good you are, if you need a visa, we're not even going to talk to you.
That is this is where the vetting comes, right?
Okay.
You have to vet, and you have to position yourself based on what's out there for you. That does not, your visa does not define your career. It may define your next job. Yes, I give you that. It may define that path, but not your entire career.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so let's go into our weekly segments now. Why don't we spin the wheel and see what we're going to talk about today? This one is called How's That? I think maybe only once before I've done this segment. As a cricket crazy country, we all have our favorite cricket memories. Do you have a favorite cricket memory, and if so, what it is?
Yes, many, but I think the one memory that really hits home close is Yuvraj Singh 6 sixes.
I think that was the first time anybody did that.
Yes.
And has it been done again after that?
I think there's probably been done once or
Yeah,
twice.
enough to count on one
Yes.
hand. And I really pity Stuart Broad for being the bowler in that. So just to give you context, in cricket, when you hit what's like a home run in baseball, it's 6 runs. So if you see how often a home run is hit in baseball, sixes are more common in a cricket match than home runs are in baseball, I would say. But to do them 6 times in a row, it's like 6 home runs being hit on 6 pitches with the same pitcher and the same batter. And
in the same over.
In the same over, yeah. So that I think has probably never been done.
It's like
it's incredibly difficult.
Yeah, it is literally like 2 hat tricks.
I read, or actually I watched his interview at some point, and he was like, I wasn't even thinking about the record until I hit the 5th one. And then that he was like, okay, now I better pay attention.
That's what happens. I think that's why that moment means so much, because that man has so much, I would say, resilience in what he has done, not just in his professional, but also personal life.
Yeah. He came back from cancer and he was player of the tournament when India won the World Cup in 2011.
And he also, 2007 World Cup was also won, right? This was the T20 World Cup.
Oh, yeah.
That's so this is actually one of the major innings that led them in that space. So, records are not broken knowing that the record is going to break. And that's why this is very close. If your intention is to I want to go break a record, it's not going to happen most likely. If your intention is to go play well, you will. Same way with the job search, right?
Sure. That's a great analogy. We have time for one more segment. So let's spin the wheel once more. So this one is called Sounds and Smells. Do you have any sound or smell, good or bad smell, I won't judge, that instantly transports you back to Bombay?
The first train smell.
We've done this segment 3 times and that's been the answer all 3 times.
It has to be. It has to be. Like Mumbai and Barish is synonymous with chai and pakoda. Yeah. So it's like a smell starts with the rain and ends in your stomach.
We have certain things that are so common across even different countries. Like I had a guest named Ranil Herat on a few weeks ago and I asked him what his mango memory was, because that's another one of my segments. And he said he had a guy outside his school who would sell raw mango with chili and salt and lime. And he's from Sri Lanka.
Scary.
And I had a guy outside my school who did that. So these are not just nostalgia, they're things that connect people across what is a very diverse part of the world. So that brings us to the end of our show for today. Thank you for listening to Diasporaa. We hope you enjoyed hearing Karishma's interesting story. Remember to check out our show notes for links and more information about the topics discussed in today's episode. You can find Diasporaa on all major podcast platforms and can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. If you like this episode, consider following us on Instagram or leaving us a 5-star review. Diasporaa is part of the Staying Powered network of shows and podcasts, all of which are dedicated to inspiring listeners to build lives of meaning, connection, and value. You can find the Staying Power network of shows wherever you get your podcasts. We'll be back next week with another interesting story from the South Asian diaspora. Until then, take care and stay curious. And Karishma, thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much, Adi, for inviting, for being such a gracious host, and so much fun conversing with you.